Mr. Chairman and members of council, thank you for permitting me to speak. I am the substitute for Jeffrey Carlton. My name is Alex Giannelia, and I'm the president of the Airborne Sensing Corporation, which operated out of the City Center Airport for about 31 years between 1981 and 2012. A few months ago, Mr. Robert DeLuce sent emails to my staff members to assist in his application for the runway extension and jet operations. So I would like to speak to this application. Airborne Sensing started in 1981 with $200 starting capital, and based on the primary general aviation focus of the airport as it existed under the tripartite agreement, we got going. Since then, without any partners, shareholders, pension funds, or subsidies, we developed into a company that has mapped large parts of the Western Hemisphere from the equator to the Arctic. We support the resource industry, major energy, transportation, civil infrastructure projects in over 20 countries. Currently, this company is one of the only 10 suppliers to one of the biggest internet corporations in the world to provide imagery for 3D visualization that you see and will see on your cell phones. We might not hire attractive flight attendants, but we do help people build cities, communication networks, create and move energy, manage resources, and assist in the development of cities and governments and tax bases. However, we cannot support Mr. DeLuce's motion because the same person who signed that email signed the eviction notice that kicked us out of the island airport in 1982. We also cannot support the Toronto Port Authority because when we turned to them as the custodians of general aviation under the terms of the existing tripartite agreement, they did not even answer our emails. This discussion is not about runways or about jets. This discussion is about the essence of business, trust and risk. When you can trust something, you're willing to take risks. We voted you because we trusted you to risk our money. A deal is a deal, so why change this one? Can you trust these organizations to honor an amended agreement when they have been deficient at honoring the old one? Why give a blank check to an organization who couldn't even manage the mortgage payments on the last one? The original tripartite agreement was a carefully balanced document. It works. Changing it, in our view, and we've mapped many cities, over 100, would be economic and cultural suicide for this city. And that is my point right now. Thank you.
Questions, Councillor Carroll.
It seems like you had a fairly complex presentation. Did you have any comments that got cut short that you'd like to share with me?
Well, I did have a 3D that I was going to show you, but the AV people said it might be too time-consuming. So what I would like to share with you is there's no conflict of interest, but one of the things we do at other cities in the world is obstacle mapping. And we provide neutral, accurate maps that settle the arguments of whether airplanes will or will not bump into things in the middle of the night. And I just want to point that out.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy.
All right, Councillor Perks.
How many people do you employ?
13 people.
13 people. And other small commercial operators employ a number of people out of this airport?
Formerly, there were a number of other employees, about 25 different GA businesses that a lot of whom have been driven out.
So we've lost employment as
That's correct.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Any further questions? Councillor Davis.
You made the point that why would we trust these people, these organizations in the future when they haven't upheld the terms of the tripartite agreement up until this point. I wonder if you could just comment further on that. And what were the provisions specifically related to general aviation?
The tripartite agreement on its first page says this airport is to be used for general aviation. And then it goes on to say occasional STOL use. General aviation has been pushed systematically off the airport since the onset of the Porter presence by virtue of landing times which were restricted, the space which was no longer which we rented from the predecessor Porter, we were systematically being pushed out of rented space that we were using and were paying for on a monthly basis. That's what I mean by being pushed out. The Port Authority staff.
Thank you. That's 1 minute.
Thank you.
Wow.
Councillor Vaughan and then Councillor McConnell.
How big a business model were you running at the airport? What was your gross revenues?
I don't know that Revenue Canada is in the building here, but approximately $4 million.
And you were doing high-tech mapping for places like the City of Toronto?
City of Toronto, Guayaquil, Ecuador, Mexico City, Miami,
So it was
New York.
It'd be fair to describe you as a global high-tech business?
I'll be a little bit hemispheric, would be a little bit more humble.
Okay. And where have you been pushed to as a result of the eviction because of the business arrangement that ties up the airport with Mr. Deluce having control of most of the infrastructure there?
Currently, the maintenance base of the company is Oshawa.
So we've lost the jobs to Oshawa as a result of a business arrangement between a federal agency and Mr. Deluce?
We lost jobs to Oshawa, that's correct. Yep.
And how does Mr. Deluce get to dictate your presence at the airport?
He's our landlord, and the Port Authority is his landlord, and neither one of them gave us relief.
And so he sets the fees for putting an airplane on the tarmac, sets the fees for servicing airplanes,
Correct.
sets the fees for operating there.
Correct.
And is there any other airport in North America that you're aware of that has a single private operator controlling a public asset in this manner?
We've flown in and out of 500 airports in the Western Hemisphere. We have not seen an airport run as incompetently as the Toronto City Centre Airport, period, full stop.
And in terms of the impact that jets would have,
All right, sorry, time's up. Councillor McConnell.
Yes, so with regards to the impact of jets, just to follow along, yesterday there was a report that came out with regards to the runway, and have you seen that report?
I have seen the report. I did not contribute to its creation.
And so you agree with that report, given your experience with airports, is that correct?
I agree that airports in the presence of tall buildings are, in fact, a violation of Transport Canada regulations that require exemptions. That's what I do agree with.
So you've been in general aviation on the island airport for a very long time. When you have this number, 202 slots or whatever you have of a major airline, and if there were jets or even if it's just still the props, what are the safety conditions or concerns around the general aviators?
Speed differential is too great, so the general aviators or the jets have to move out of the way.
And so who generally moves out of the way?
Sorry, Councillor.
Small guys.
Councillor McConnell, that's 1 minute.
Those are my
Thank you,
questions.
Councillor
Thank you.
McMahon.
Thank you. Could you finish answering Councillor McConnell's question, please?
When there's a speed differential conflict, or there's a conflict based on wake turbulence, which is created when a large aircraft precedes a smaller aircraft, the smaller aircraft has to maintain its distance and sometimes has to abort the approach and sometimes has to circle around. The cost of operating a small airplane is about $15 to $20 a minute, so that 5 to 10 minute turnaround costs the operator a certain amount of money which is not compensated.
Okay. Questions from members of committee? Seeing none, the next deputant is Boris Bras.